Hello to those who are with us today. I hope you can hear me. And if you cannot, you can always write that you cannot hear me, that I'm just a big talking head. But for those who are here or who will be joining us later on or who will be watching this in review later on, because we're recording this video, of course, then yeah, I hope you're having a great day. And a few things that we would like to cover today. The major things are actually relating to, of course, the current situation with President Trump, with the tariffs, with the situation in China, and what are there other potential countries that we can consider for sourcing. So let me start from the beginning. I'll give you a little bit of introduction on who we are, what do we do, and yes, who we are, basically. So very, very easy. I hope everybody can see the slide. Let me check that it's correct, that the slide can be seen. Yeah. So Signify Global Product Sourcing, just to introduce you our company a little bit and why do I have the right to talk about anything that I'm actually talking about. I'm one of the founders of Signify Global Product Sourcing. We are obviously a product sourcing company and we're doing sourcing across the globe. So not only we're focusing on China, we also look at other countries that can potentially be great for our customers. We help our customers with new products, product hunting, searching for manufacturers for new products, and of course, supply chain optimization, right? So from my perspective, a lot of people look at sourcing in a little bit of a wrong way, let's put it this way, because they look at it, oh, look, China, let's go, it's cheap, it's great, it's wonderful there. However, that's not really the way to look at it. So one of the best things that you can actually do, and this is the golden rule for me, this is the golden rule for us basically, is that you can look at your landed cost. And this is where a lot of people actually started finding out what landed cost is in the last few months, since the additional tariffs in the United States have been introduced on many different countries. Because before that, people were just looking at the information of what is the price of the product, and they're like, oh my God, this marker is so cheap. It's so cheap in China. And you know, in United States, it's 10 times the price to manufacture this thing, or 5. And they were just looking at the price. And they were happy, and they were basically purchasing the products without taking into consideration the landed cost, right? The landed cost, it actually takes into consideration the product price, right, that you have, your shipping costs, your import tax, right? Because we need to take a look at the full picture. So a lot of people don't look at this, hence they later on lose money. I know more than one person, and those were a businessmen who were very proficient in other businesses, and they were led astray by some very, very bad people, where they lost a lot of money, where they were not taught to consider the landed cost and take it into consideration. So here is a small picture of us and our team. This is just a part of our team, and that is actually in China. We were in China in January with some of our ladies, exploring the Futian market, which is the largest all year round trade show in the city of Yiwu in China, right? We were exploring, we were working, we were just having fun. So do not fear, stay positive, positive thinking. A lot of things are happening in the world, and there are two ways you can take it. The first way is go down, crash, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And the second way, there is always an opportunity in everything that we do. There is always an opportunity. There is always, every crisis can be taken as an opportunity. It just depends on what you're going to do with it. First things first, what has happened and what has changed in the last 6 months? I'm not even talking about the last months, because the last months I feel like 10 years have passed. I have never watched Bloomberg so much in my life, because I'm literally glued to Bloomberg, CNN, Fox, and all of the news, trying to stay on the time zone when Trump is awake to see what is happening, what is the next move. So last year, during a few events in Asia and in the United States, I was already talking about the Trump taxes, as we call it, from his first term and now the current term. I was already talking about them, and the prediction was, of course, he's going to hit very, very high, but eventually he's going to go down. So after he hit 145%, my prediction, he was going to go down to 35% on most of the goods, and a little bit higher on some other items. I was wrong by a little bit, but I'm happy I was wrong, because the current state of affairs, state of events, is that the current taxes for goods that are coming in from China, it is 30% for the next 90 days, already lower than that, of course. And most of the people are trying to cramp a lot of purchasing into these 90 days. A lot of people are missing the point that when after 90 days, the tax will not revert to 125, 145, whatever, 200, whatever percent he wants. Currently, the bill says, or the whatever he signed, the executive order, it says that the taxes will actually revert back from 30% to 34%. So in 90 days, there won't be too much difference, right? 4%, of course, it's a difference, but 30 versus 34 versus 145 is a huge difference. So this is one of the major things that people have missed. We also need to remember that taxes are still active on many other countries across the globe. If you take, for example, Europe, the taxes for certain goods have been paused, but for other goods, they're active, and they're not only 10%, but they're 20%. So if you're doing sourcing, if you're considering doing sourcing in China or outside of China, you actually need to have a good clarity of the situation. I ask you, yes, please use ChatGPT, but don't use ChatGPT as a research engine. Use it as something that provides information. I still, for all of the major things, I don't use ChatGPT when I want to find substantial information. I go to Google and I try to research and I try to find the initial sources of information, because I found that with ChatGPT, especially when it comes to taxes, when it comes to import, when it comes to de minimis and all of those things, it's problematic, and you have to ask again and again and again to actually get to the correct information. But how do you know the information is correct if you don't know what the correct information is? So I know what the general correct information is. So please be careful when you're using ChatGPT to estimate some taxes, some de minimis import, etc., etc. So taxes, everything has changed. The game has changed. How much did that change for all of you? If you are, for example, a Amazon seller, if you are a retailer, it doesn't matter, right? Your prices towards your end consumer are going to go up. This is what Walmart has announced in the United States last week. I think last Thursday, they said that the price increase, because the taxes have still gone up, that the price increase will be passed along to the consumer. And President Trump said, bad Walmart. But at the end of the day, this is an enterprise. It's their business. They can do whatever they want, and they can't expect both Walmart and the Chinese manufacturers to just eat the tariffs. So will the consumption actually decrease? Yes, the consumption will decrease. That is just logic. If something used to cost, so I give you an example. Some people were buying rolls of kitchen paper on Temu, and they used to pay like 50 cents per roll or something like this. And now the price is like $2 per roll. So obviously this is a substantial increase because you have a few items, everything adds up, everything stacks up. With the previous predictions, with the increase in prices, it was said that in the United States, per household, the prices or the expenditure per year will increase by $7,500. And this is a lot. And even now with the cut tariffs, even if it's half of that, even if it's $3,000 per year, for a lot of families who are making, I don't know, $30 or $40 or $50,000 per year, United States, which is a very low salary there, it's very hard, right? And especially if you have a family of 4 or 5. So taxes, this is the biggest issue. And a lot of people right now, even the tax towards China has rolled back. And a lot of people started stopping their research into manufacturing outside of China, which, to be open and honest, in my opinion, is not a very smart thing to do. We already see the potential situation that is happening, for example, between India and the United States. Right. So China, if you take Apple into consideration, Apple was switching a lot of its manufacturing, if not all, as they were saying, of their iPhones to India. Right now, India is extremely pissed off. If you read the local news in India, not, of course, anything on the international level, especially not in US, but if you read local news in India, you will see that India is pissed off on a few fronts. First things first, they're kind of angry that Trump says that it's because of Trump that the situation, that near war situation in India or between India and their neighbors has been stopped. India said, guys, we negotiated this ourselves. Political thing. Another thing, and this is a big one, is Trump said that India ran towards them and said, we will give you 0 tariffs on anything, just please be nice to us and all of those things. And India literally came out and said, that did not happen. We're in discussions. So we need to be careful on what is happening, because how unpredictable the current president is of the United States can affect a lot of things on how we're doing sourcing. Hence, just focusing on one country in general, it doesn't matter what is happening, but focusing on one country in general is not a smart idea anymore. So if you're sourcing from China now, I do encourage a China plus one strategy, because you need to try to diversify your risks. So a few things to look. I want to look at China first, at US, and then we look at Indonesia and why it can be a potentially great country to go and do sourcing. So in China, the government is giving a lot of stimulus towards the local economy and towards the people of the country to actually spend money within the country. So they're stimulating the local economy and they have the money, right? So they also have a targeted growth still of 5% towards the 2025, even with everything that's been happening. And right now is still a great time to renegotiate with the manufacturers, because the customers from US are still fewer. So we do a Canton Fair sourcing trip together with Amy Weiss from Amazing at Home twice a year, obviously, Canton Fair. And this year, not this year, but this last session, it was the 137th session for Canton Fair. The amount of people who actually attended during the 3 sessions was almost 289,000 people. This is a lot of people. And this is a 17% increase from the previous year. This is a lot. A lot of those people were not from United States. A lot of them started to come from Europe and from the MENA region as well, and Southeast Asia as well, because people understand that when there is oversupply of manufacturers and they don't have enough customers, this is a perfect time to negotiate your prices. And this is exactly what we were doing in China whilst we were there. And this is exactly what we're still doing, because despite of all of the orders that are still coming from US, nobody has stopped ordering, but they are considering different countries as well for diversification and safety reasons. I think all of the people in the world who have at least a little bit of basic understanding on what has been happening with the economy in the United States, they can understand that what is Trump trying to do in terms of reshoring, bringing back the manufacturers and building everything in the United States. It is not impossible, but it will take decades. And by the time it's going to be done, it's going to be robots working in those factories. So it's not going to be for people anyhow. And how many people do you know who would like to go from a job in the office, sitting in front of their latest Apple computer, MacBook, etc., to sitting at the factory and making an iPhone? Not so many, right? This is why you have a lot of labor who comes from other countries, from developing countries. It is not offensive. This is just what it is. And developed countries across the globe, they do exactly this. If you come to Germany, you have a lot of people, for example, working in a farming sector. People in the farming sector, they most likely come from other countries, whether it may be some young students working in the fields collecting asparagus, or a lot of them come from Poland, Russia, Ukraine, and other countries where the salaries are lower, and they come to Germany for higher salaries, better health insurance, etc., etc. That's perfectly normal. So it was very clear from the start that whatever Trump was doing, this is not going to happen, and it's just going to be a game to scare everybody and then put the tariffs down. This is what we have seen, because it's impossible to completely rebuild an economy in the way that he wants to that fast. It just doesn't work in such a way. So China, US, wonderful. What does it have to do, with manufacturing in other countries? Everything. Because before you go and start the manufacturing process, or even if you did start, even if it's your first product or 10th product or 10,000 SKU that you have, you need to understand the manufacturing processes. You need to understand your production. You need to understand how many people does it take to produce this pen. This is actually made in Germany, right? I'm supporting the local economy. So how many people does it actually take to make a certain product, to make your product? And this is one of the ways for you to try and identify which other countries your products can be manufactured. So for China, we have it kind of easy, right? For a lot of people, for a lot of businesses, you have Alibaba, you have Asio or Akio, their AI tool. But what about other countries? How can you find products in other countries? Of course, you can type in just marker manufacturer in, I don't know, Indonesia, in Germany, in Turkey, but it's not always going to show up in such a way. So sometimes you need to understand the materials and how the products are built. So this is a great way of finding new manufacturers, especially if you have a manufacturer in China and you can understand what processes go into producing your product and how many people does it take. So here are different, like completely, this is all from China. Just to give an example, right? A towel, a book for students for practicing, and a color. So all of those things are a lot more complicated than people think. So if you take that towel, and we were at that factory in China with our girls, if you take that towel from the moment the base material arrives to the factory to the moment the towel is actually finished, it takes about 15 people to be involved in different processes. Very similar story for the alphabet book. I think it was about 9 people. And this, the last photo, is a color. It's a very special color, right? It's not base, it's some shiny. So you need to actually mix it by hand. Hence, it takes longer period of time. Hence, it takes longer to actually load the machine, the printing machine, then clean the machine between the prints, right? Which makes your product more expensive. So if you want your products, your product packaging to be cheaper, for example, just go with the CMYK colors. So much the machine doesn't need to be cleaned in between the manufacturing of different products of different companies. So all of those things you need to take into consideration. Here is a simple, layout of how many people does it take to produce which products. For example, if you take a backpack, it might take 7 to 13 people. Shower head, 6 people. Vitamins, you want to be healthy? Takes about 10 people to get involved to get you healthy. Chair on which you're sitting, unless you're walking, I'm sitting, 6 to 10 people. BMW car, I just put it there for comparison. You can find some videos of factory floors at BMW. 200 plus people at the 6+ kilometer conveyor, and it takes 36 hours to complete one car. That's really cool. I've been there. It's wonderful. Or a simple notebook. A simple notebook, you would think, oh my God, why does it require 5 to 7 people? But it does, because there's so many processes actually involved into making that notebook. And if you understand every process, you can talk to your manufacturer and you can say, hey, what if you have wonderful ideas? And you can say, hey, what if we do it this, that way, and it will make it cheaper? Oh, that can be great. Because sometimes we need to look at things with fresh eyes. So this is why it is important to understand how the products are actually being manufactured. So selecting country for sourcing, very important. How to do this? You know what? Honestly, start with basic Googling. Not ChatGPT. You can ChatGPT as well, or Perplexity, or whatever else. There's so many AI tools out there right now. But honestly, start with Google. For example, top notebook, right? Take an example of a notebook made out of paper. So paper, it's pulp, right? So pulp manufacturing. You can Google top manufacturers of pulp in the world, right? A few countries are going to come out, such as China, Russia, India, even United States. But United States doesn't take its pulp to produce notebooks. They do some other things with it. It's more industrial. Or you can easily type in manufacturers of notebooks. Or another trick is say the word exporter. Top exporting countries of notebooks in the world. Sometimes it sounds long, but trust me, that works. So you can kind of start with this. You also need to, of course, remember common sense, right? Some countries are more developed, some are less developed. Some people will try to trick you, so you need to do a little bit of verification. Just ask the company's basic documents and see when they were registered. You know, try to Google the official name, try to find their Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, anything. And please be considerate of your budget. A lot of people are coming into manufacturing without thinking that they need to kind of spend any money on it. 10, 15 years ago, the Amazon gurus were saying you can start a business with $1,000. Of course, you can start a business with $1,000. But right now, if you want to start a business and you want to sell and you want to make money, you need a lot more money. So you can still start with $1,000, but you need to have a very unique product and you need to have very good skills in all the other avenues of selling the product, marketing, photography, etc., etc. So currently, in my opinion, if you want to start a brand and you have some knowledge, my suggestion for mass production and some marketing, etc., etc., $10,000. I would go with 10. If you have 20 would be best. Can you start with 500? Yes, you can purchase products for 500. But then the rest of the things you need to do on your own. And considering the complexity of the current e-commerce market, this will be a lot of sleepless nights and missed birthdays for you to basically learn things. So be considerate of your budget, do a proper research beforehand before you start anything. So one of the things when you're communicating with the factories, whether they're in China, whether they're in Nepal, whether they're in the United States, is you need to take a look at their levels of equipment utilization. So here on the photos, you can actually see this is us walking during the Indonesia sourcing trip we've done a few months back. This was a huge factory. The factory floor was 15,000 square meters. This is huge. They had the whole supply chain in there. The only thing they didn't do is they didn't grow the cotton, the raw cotton. They received the raw cotton from all over the world. They cleaned it. They did everything that needs to be done with them, and they made them into the thread, right, into the yarn. And then they produce towels, bedding, anything from textiles. So this is a factory with a lot of machinery. Why is it important to have a factory where they modernize? Like the machinery they had, this was from Austria. It's old, but this thing will work for another 50 years. Nothing has changed. This has been built to last for years. So why is it important to have factories with high utilization of machinery? It is because it requires fewer people. People get sick, people fall in love, people get all of those things, right? Humans are unstable. So, and this is why a lot of humans are being substituted with AI right now, because AI can work 24/7. The same goes with machinery. Machinery can also break down, but it is less likely to break down, and they have higher efficiency and higher output in comparison to people. So if the factory has more machinery, and one of the important questions you need to ask them is, are you going to, invest in more equipment? Are you going to invest in modernization? If they're saying yes and they're giving you their plans, this is awesome, right? And these are the factories you can work with. And another reason, not only because they're modernizing, but when you have machinery, you can stretch your economies of scale, meaning your prices can be better. It's as simple as that. You need so many people to substitute one machinery, right? The machinery might cost 30, 40, 50, $100,000, but the output of it is a lot higher, and you will be able to break even and start making money a lot faster than hiring people. So high level of equipment utilization are extremely important. Now, let's take a look at a few countries that are out there. Obviously, we have Indonesia, China, Korea, Germany, US, Mexico. In China, I would actually raise the price up to $600. Only very few factories are still paying $400 as a salary to their workers. Korea is expensive, Germany is expensive, US is expensive. So I think they calculated that if the iPhone is going to be produced in the United States, then the cost of it will go up to about $4,000, right? So a little bit higher than it currently is. I assume Mexico is a lot more expensive than people actually assume. So Indonesia, $200. It seems quite low to a lot of people, and they're saying, oh my God, how can people live on this? We need to remember that different countries have different standards and different prices. I've been coming to Indonesia I lived in China since 2005. I've been coming to Indonesia since 2013. And even now when I go there, my normal meal will cost me about $2.50, $3. Right? So for me, this is like normal, local, you can get even like local, you can get even cheaper, right? So about $2, $3, and I'm happy with it. I'm full, and I usually have leftovers, right? And this includes usually a drink. So we need to remember that the standards of life and the salaries are different in many different countries. When I go to United States and I see one salad in the supermarket costs $6 or $7, like normal, like a green salad that you buy and then you later eat. And I'm thinking, well, this is insane. In Germany, it costs 90 cents, right? So again, different countries, we need to be considered. Indonesia, I have met with many different people there, factory owners as well. It has a lot of advantages in comparison to China, which I like. And one of the biggest ones is no Chinese New Year. So we know when you're sourcing from China, Chinese New Year is a pain in one spot. Not only Chinese New Year, but then we have the Dragon Boat Festival, then we have the Autumn Festival and the birthday of the Communist Party, etc., etc. Before that, there is always a rush to finish your manufacturing, to ship your product, so there is always a spike. In Indonesia, you don't have anything like this, which also helps you with another point, with the consistent quality. So in China, when the workers are going back once a year during the Spring Festival, which is in January, February, depending on the year, when they go home, maybe 60% of workers will not come back. That means you need new workers. That means you need months to train them, and it's a headache. In Indonesia, the workers, they live around the factory, the whole family, grandma, grandpa, everybody. They're not migrating for work. They're working where they're living. And some people that I've met at the factories, they've been in the factory 15, 20 years. Like that textile factory that I showed you, they've been open since 1967 or 68. If I'm not mistaken, there were people there who were working there for 15, 20 years, and they live around the corner and they're happy and they're not going anywhere. And this is the type of consistency you're looking in your manufacturing. Plus, the country has 240 million people. It's the fourth largest, or 280, sorry. It's the fourth largest population on planet Earth, right? Which is also extremely important because there is competition between the labor. So it is very good for those people who are trying to manufacture products in Indonesia. Plus, they do have a connection to China because you have a lot of Chinese descendants, some Chinese blood in Indonesia. So they have that ingenuity, they have that thirst for money, for betterment, for development. So they're not standing on one spot, they're developing. I know quite a few very, very handy, very wonderful business people from Indonesia. So tons and tons of different and positive things. The roads are being built up. The countries where the manufacturing is located is small enough. They're building the roads. You can move from one spot to another really quickly. You don't need to go somewhere where you can't get there, right? So this is also extremely important when you're manufacturing. Indonesia has currently 3 active ports, and they're building some more from which you can do shipping. Shipping from Indonesia to United States is similar to the one to the timeline from China, and the prices are actually similar as well. Might be a few $100s cheaper, actually. One of the reasons I do like Indonesia, not like in addition to the reasons I already gave, is because you have a lot of international brands quietly investing into Indonesia. So this is an article from the beginning of March. I remember this very well because we were on our final days of our Indonesia sourcing trip, and Apple and the government of Indonesia have been negotiating already for a few months in regards to investment by Apple into Indonesia. Indonesia didn't just want like, oh, Apple, come build some things, and that's it. No. They wanted a huge multi-billion-dollar corporation to invest in local infrastructure, in developing their people and training their people, teaching many things, not only to build an iPhone or to build, in this case, an AirTag or something like this. And this is what they got. So Indonesian government has a very good deal with Apple for, and I think 65 or 70% of all of the AirTags in the future will be produced in Indonesia. Samsung manufactures in Indonesia, Philips manufactures in Indonesia, Zara, Nike, Reebok, Barbie, and tons of other factories. Brands as well. I know that Lego is considering and looking at some things to do there. There's a lot of packaging that's being done there as well. So when you see bigger brands going kind of quietly into those places, you're thinking, they might know something that we do not know. So that's just one of the additional reasons that I like Indonesia. So easy peasy. If you would like to find some manufacturers in Indonesia, of course, you can come to us. You can come on our Indonesia sourcing trip. That's also a very cool thing because you also learn a lot about culture, and we do pre-sourcing on those trips. But you can do a few things on your own. One of the websites is Indo Trading. Most of the people in Indonesia, we need to remember Indonesia is mostly a Muslim country. Bali, however, is not Muslim. They're kind of a very different religion in there. But in general, people in Indonesia are extremely kind. They're very welcoming. They're really, really helpful, and they're just there for you. So Indo Trading is one of the websites that I can suggest you for kind of doing some basic checking out, looking at a few things on your own. If you're looking for manufacturers there. So you simply, not only you can find manufacturers there, but I love this, you can find an office boy or girl stuff. Obviously, this is translated from Bahasa. They automatically translate the website. So you can even find some team members for your business. Maybe it's a virtual assistant. Maybe it is a person who can help you later on find manufacturers, right? So possibilities are endless. But again, I think this is a cool website and it can be helpful. So this is one of the products, for example. There's a lot of cosmetics being manufactured in Indonesia. So this is how one of the cards from the manufacturer will look at. you can request a quotation. You also have the verified supplier, the name, the cool thing is you have the tax status as well. We can go into this a little bit on another occasion. And you even have the location of the said factories. And here, this is Tangerang. Tangerang, this is close to Jakarta, so you can easily fly to Jakarta. Tons of international flights from across the globe. And Tangerang, depending on where, it's like from half an hour drive to infinity and beyond, because traffic in Indonesia, in Jakarta, is horrible. So you need to plan well. You can give them a call, but the best way of communicating with Indonesian manufacturers, which I love, is WhatsApp. They are WhatsApp people. They will respond. They will do video calls. They will show you the factory. They're very, very easy. They will share. You do need to ask the right questions, like with any manufacturer out there. So make sure you are asking the right questions, right? You need to understand, are you guys a factory? Are you 100%? So for me, currently, one of the biggest things with Indonesia is if you are small to medium-sized buyer, they can handle your quantities, no problem. If you're a bigger buyer, hundreds of thousands of units per year, right? Of course, it also depends on the product. Not everybody might handle your capacity. There are right factories that will, but you need to get to them. You actually need to find them. So one of the screening questions that please ask is, what capacities do you have? I don't know. I have 1 million pieces of markers that I need to manufacture per year. Can you handle it? How many can you produce per month, etc., etc. It would also be good to know, from my perspective, I always ask, where do your components come from? Are your components manufactured in Indonesia? Which ones come from abroad, etc., etc. Because there are very, very few products in the world right now that are 100% done in one spot, right? Even that textile factory that we took into consideration, the raw cotton comes from countries like Tajikistan, right? So maybe only agricultural products by now come from the countries where they're actually grown, but pesticides that are, or killing for the pesticides, they're being used, they might be coming from Germany or other countries. So everything is interconnected, and we need to be aware of this, and we need to be okay with this, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't know where the components are actually coming from. So we're almost at the end here. Another website that I would like to share with you, and the founder is Wayne, and he's really, really cool. He's actually located in Bali. He's local there, and it's called Buy Me. I say Buy Me, and Wayne can correct me if I'm pronouncing this wrong. So they're collecting a lot of manufacturers across Indonesia, and they have a website. It's kind of like Alibaba, but you kind of have to work through them. But also very good if you don't know or don't have the exact product ideas for what can be done in Indonesia. This can be a great option to browse and see what is done in Indonesia. And this is how the page looks like. You can request the price, and you can see where exactly the manufacturer is located. So very clear, very kind of to the point. So I hope you can see this. These are some of the products that you can actually manufacture in Indonesia. I'm not going to read through the whole list. You can pause, make a screenshot, but suffice to say, it's quite a large list, starting, and I'm still saying it, from plastics to tea, to coconut coal, to candles, tons and tons of different things. We have a lot of customers who, even before our Indonesia sourcing trip, they were already manufacturing there. And now we're transferring more and more people towards Indonesia, because I think it's a wonderful country to actually produce the products with. And we're going to be working close, hopefully with the government there, to help them promote the country even more, because again, I think it's a wonderful opportunity. It's a wonderful country, and a lot of people will still have the first mover advantage. So yeah, look, there's tons of information that we can go into more details about Indonesia, and I hope so, and other countries as well. I think one of the major points is to understand that the world, it seems like the world is changing rapidly, but to be open and honest, there is a new crisis every day, every week, something is changing. Is it going to be hard for a lot of us? Is it already hard? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that the business stops. Again, you can find opportunities in any disaster, and make the best out of it. So one of the things that we do, we found the best out of it, is we do Indonesia sourcing trip. We do China sourcing trip still twice a year. But we also do Indonesia sourcing trip, and the next one is actually coming up in July, and it's all inclusive, and we do pre-sourcing and find factories and everything, right? So it's a lot of fun. So at the end of the day, I do encourage Indonesia, not even because we're doing sourcing trip, but I encourage Indonesia because I see a big potential in there. India also has great potential, and Turkey and many, many other countries. They all have advantages and disadvantages. But from my perspective, I see Indonesia as an underdog. Hence, I am strongly promoting it. And whatever happens, I wish all of you a wonderful, wonderful sourcing journey, all of the positive thoughts. I decided to make this a little bit less than an hour so people are not tired. Usually 40 minutes is perfect. If you have any questions, you can always go onto our website, which is zignify.net. You can also type in Zignify Global Product Sourcing, and we would be happy to help and consult and answer any of your questions. So we wish you all the best, and we'll see you at the next webinar. And if you have any questions, you know where to find us. Thank you and bye.